Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar for Refugee Welcome Zones. My name is Rebecca Langton. I'm the manager at the Refugee Council of Australia, and I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us today. I'd like to start by acknowledging paying respects to the traditional custodians of the lands we now call home, their elders past and present. And as we work towards a more inclusive future with fair and humane policies for those seeking sanctuary, we remain committed to working alongside First Nations people for the achievement of a fully reconciled Australia. So thank you so much for joining us today. We have councils from all around Australia, which is fantastic, and other organisations and individuals who are supporters of the Refugee Welcome Zone initiative and who are interested in today's topic, which of course is unpacking anti-racism and social cohesion and the way forward for local communities. And what we are hoping to achieve today is to look a little bit more closely at what we actually mean when we say social cohesion and to address the importance of addressing race and racism in Australia. And of course, we want, as local councils, for you to go away learning and taking away some concrete actions that you can work towards in your local areas. So thank you so much for all the speakers who are joining us today. And I'm now going to hand over to our MC for the event, who is Lizzie Kuoth. Lizzie is a Refugee Council Refugee Ambassador. And in this role, she gives presentations in schools, in workplaces, engages with the media, and does other really important work to advocate for refugees and for refugee communities in Australia. So thank you so much, Lizzie, for being our MC today. Lizzie was also a former Victorian Multicultural Commissioner and holds many other advisory roles in the community and is very engaged on multicultural issues. And she also works for the Department of Community and Justice in Victoria. So thank you so much for being our MC today, Lizzie. I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that very warm welcome. And it is my pleasure to be part of this exciting event tonight. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Refugee Welcome Zone webinar, Unpacking Anti-Racism and Social Cohesion, the way forward for local communities. As mentioned by Rebecca, I'm very passionate about this work. I've been involved in this work for as long as I can remember, and I'm really excited to see that a lot of people are interested in this space and want to do more work in this. But before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. We encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A function throughout the session. Our team will do their best to ensure they are addressed during the panel. Some content may be sensitive, as Rebecca mentioned. We are discussing very important topics today. So if you do feel triggered, please feel free to step away if needed. Today's session is 90 minutes webinar, featuring insightful comments from 4 distinguished speakers. As you can see on the top, we have Giri, our Race Discrimination Commissioner, joining us today for the webinar. Lisa Button, CEO of Community Refugee Sponsorship Australia. I apologise if you are hearing some background noise. They're doing a lot of works in my area. And Blaise as well from Community Refugee Sponsorship Australia. And Mariola Nibo, Multicultural Development Officer from the Shepparton City Council. We'll begin with individual presentations, followed by a panel discussion, exploring how we can reconcile Australia's strong support for multiculturalism with the persistence of racial prejudice, and how local council can lead the way in building inclusive communities. Now, before we officially begin, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet today. I'm joining you from the Wonarung land of the Kulin Nations and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Now, to begin, our first speaker, we warmly welcome Commissioner Giri Silverman, born in India, migrating to Australia as a child. Before his appointment in 2004, Giri was principal lawyer at Murray's Blackburn, leading the Queensland Employment Law Department. He also served as a chair of Multicultural Australia and was a Queensland Multicultural Advisory Council member. This is a very condensed bio. I'm sure he does a lot more. I welcome you, Guru, to share your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Lizzie. And thank you to the Refugee Council of Australia for this opportunity. I'm really grateful. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands I'm joining from, which are the Yagara and the Turrbal people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. And I want to extend those respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that might be on this webinar today. And before I go on, I actually want to explain why I think acknowledging that I'm on country is important. I've seen that there are some councils that are debating or have even scrapped acknowledgement of country. I think that's disappointing. But let me explain why I do it. For me, as a non-Indigenous person, but who has lived experience of racism and is leading anti-racism work, it's important to understand the difference between the racism targeting someone like me and that which has targeted First Peoples for 238 years. Someone like me might be targeted by racism that results in a denial of equality, dignity, and respect. Racism targeting First Nations people also results in a denial of equality, dignity, and respect. But in addition, it is a denial of self-determination and sovereignty, which has included the taking of their land by settlers before me. And I, as a settler migrant, have benefited from that denial of sovereignty. I've benefited from that racism. I've benefited from the taking of their land. So it's a very small but important step for me to acknowledge I'm one country. Now, again, thank you to RCOA for this chance to talk. And I think that when people think about combating racism, they're often thinking about what federal or state and territory governments should do. But in our research, local councils have a really critical role to play. And it's a role that many haven't played. Last year, the Human Rights Commission released the National Anti-Racism Framework, which was the first ever whole of government and whole of society approach to eliminating racism in Australia. And in our research to prepare that framework, we got consultants to do a desktop audit of anti-racism approaches at all levels of government. And what we found, to put it mildly, was mixed. And within local government, what we found was there's a reluctance at times to even use the word racism. Sometimes they seem to prefer to use terms like social cohesion or harmony. And I know that the topic for today includes social cohesion. I don't know, Mariola's going to talk about social cohesion. I don't know about Lisa and Blaise, but for me, it's never really been completely clear to me what social cohesion means. But if it means that we all want to get along, my issue is that we're not going to get there by pretending racism doesn't exist. You have to name the beast to slay it. Though, in my experience, the person that calls out racism often gets attacked far more than the perpetrator. And that's a very effective way to suppress discussion about racism. And sometimes those attacks happen because people say, oh, well, you're talking about racism, you're so divisive. And I say, well, actually, no, I think racism is what's divisive. Talking about racism isn't like saying Beetlejuice. It doesn't mean the demon, Michael Keaton, suddenly appears in front of you. The demon is well and truly amongst us. In fact, it's embedded into our systems and institutions. And you have to remember that many of our systems and institutions, like local councils, were built during colonial times and they were baked in during the White Australia policy. They were not designed to let in people of colour. They weren't designed to let in people like me, Blaise and Lizzie. And they certainly weren't designed for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So now some of them are playing a century of catch-up. But here's the thing. What I want to do and what everyone that's speaking to you today, Mariola, Lizzie, Lisa, and Blaise, what we all want to do is try and make our society better. And my family has a wonderful life in Australia, but that doesn't mean that others don't suffer racism. And it doesn't mean we can't do better. We can and we should. And you in local councils have a really unique opportunity to do that, to make things better. Our research shows that community design and community-led anti-racism work is the most effective anti-racism work. And who in government is closer to community than local council? We know that community organisations and service providers tend to have higher levels of trust from communities that experience racism. So as councils, you should identify local trusted organisations and service providers that can act as a first go-to contact. So local anti-racism hubs or networks for people experiencing racism. But you at councils, you have to help these local organisations. You have to help build their capacity so they can adequately respond to and record racism-related incidents, and to create a local evidence base, because that can then be used for advocacy and to target and to have particular targeted anti-racism actions in the local area. But there is a fabulous case study of some councils who are doing it really well that I want to take you through. And it's for me, it's what I would hope to see many other councils do. And some of you may know about this already. So in 2021, Victoria University, Wyndham City Council and Wyndham Community and Education Centre launched Australia's first local anti-racism network to provide alternative community-based reporting pathways and support services for communities in Wyndham, Victoria. And that was the result of a successful pilot project led by Victoria University on the practical ways that reporting and support services could be tailored to the specific needs of local communities in Wyndham. Now that's been successfully expanded. There are 3 community-led anti-racism support networks that operate in Wyndham, Whittlesea, and Melbourne's southeast region of Greater Dandenong, Casey, and Cardinia. What these networks do is they connect local government, service providers, and community members. And together, the networks create a supportive environment where local community members can safely share their experiences of racism and access appropriate support, such as legal advice or assistance with reporting to an authority or psychological support. And then the networks record, with consent, of course, reported cases of racism to develop local data on racism. So, for example, the intake and assessment staff at the Southeast Anti-Racism Network are trained to listen to people reporting racist incidents, provide appropriate referrals, and offer the option to complete a simple report. And that data is reviewed every 6 to 12 months, used to inform discussions with local councils, police, shopping centre management, or to drive anti-racism advocacy and policy change. So what this does, these kind of networks, they don't just raise awareness about racism, but they empower communities to respond to it. And it promotes a sense of joint commitment and purpose in tackling racism, which you might even call social cohesion. And many individual community members have been empowered to speak up against racism and support others in the community. So the creators of this project, and the thing to remember here, this is community-led community design. It's really important. They've recommended a 5-step approach for other local governments. And so this is what I hope that all of the local government representatives listening can take into account. 1, you identify local organisations and community groups to be first contact organisations. And they have to be organisations that are trusted by communities. So ones that have people that have experienced racism and are interested in enhancing support for community members or clients who've experienced racism. 2, you need to build the capacity of these first contact organisations to provide adequate support, reporting and referral services. And remembering, they often have very limited resources. They're staffed by volunteers. They're people that have 17 other things going on. They're parents, they're workers, they're probably doing community sport. You know how it is. The volunteers end up volunteering for everything because they're volunteers. That's the sort of people they are. So they're pretty overburdened to begin with. And the organisations won't provide specialised or legal advice, but instead emotional support and the opportunity to report and record the incident, and then to discuss options for further actions. 3, you promote these newly established or enhanced support organisations and reporting services across local communities. 4, you establish a local support network, and you're connecting the local community groups and organisations with each other and linking them with existing specialised support services. They could be mental health services, community legal services, local police, complaint handling services. And then finally, You identify one central organisation tasked with coordinating this local support network to support the gradual expansion, promoted services, centrally collect the individual reports of racism, and you use this evidence for awareness-raising campaigns and to inform prevention and intervention measures. So it's a fantastic way forward. I congratulate the councils that have been involved in that and all the community organisations, of course, who led it, and others that are part of it. And I strongly recommend other councils to follow suit. But there are other things you can do. Councils can, so for example, councils can consider placing anti-racism messaging in local areas. Visibility of that messaging can be really important. And if you're a council that's genuinely committed to fighting racism, you can do what the Inner West Council of Sydney did. And it's pioneering really, they undertook a consultation to develop their own anti-racism strategy, which uses or draws on the recommendations in the National Anti-Racism Framework, which we released last year. We also are going to have some messaging in the works at the Australian Human Rights Commission in the race discrimination team that would support community advocacy for councils to adopt the National Anti-Racism Framework, because that framework is the first ever whole of government, whole of society approach to tackling racism. It deals with all areas of our lives. And to date, no level of government has endorsed it or agreed to fund any of its recommendations. So this is why we have to have advocacy in support of that framework and to encourage councils to adopt it. I'll finish with this. We're all on the road to make our society better, and that the destination of our journey is one where equity, dignity, and respect is reality for everyone in Australia, no matter what your racial, cultural, or religious background. But the road is clear, and we've even built the bus for you with the National Anti-Racism Framework and what these other councils are doing. So all you need to do is get on board the bus, and together we can make a difference and make a change. Thanks very much, Lizzie. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for sharing your convictions and calling for actions. We deeply appreciate your leadership and in challenging racism and advocating for equity. Thank you for leading with heart and courage. Building on the theme of inclusive leadership and community advocacy, our next speaker brings a strong local government perspective. We now welcome Mariella, Multicultural Development Officer at Greater Shepparton City Council. Mariella brings extensive experience in cultural competency, community engagement, and program development. Her previous roles include work with Ethnic Council of Shepparton and District, and she currently serves on the Victorian Multicultural Commission's Regional Advisory Committee. She also participated in the 2024 Fairly Leadership Program. Welcome, Mariella.
Thank you. Let me share the slides. Can you see them? Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so sorry for all of that. Again, disappeared.
We're seeing Rebecca's screen now, which has your slides.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm so sorry for that. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to be part of this important conversation hosted by the Refugee Council of Australia. So my name is Mariola Nebiu and I'm the Multicultural Engagement Officer at Greater Shepparton City Council. It's a privilege to share our local experience in building social cohesion and addressing racism in a diverse regional community. Okay, so allow me to acknowledge the Yorta peoples of the land, which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continued culture, and to acknowledge the memories of their ancestors. So I'd like to start by sharing a quick overview of Greater Shepparton diversity. This slide shows a snapshot of our community based on the 2021 census data. It's important to note that our communities are at different stages of development. Some are still emerging, others are growing, and many are well established and proud for their progress. So I had the privilege of guiding several groups through the process of forming their own associations, and I'm incredibly proud of the amazing work they are done to present their voices. Greater Shepparton also has been home to people from over 100 cultural backgrounds, and I currently engage with more than 30 active culture communities. Many countries are represented by multiple faiths and traditions, resulting in around 50 representatives groups. So one of the most culture diverse regional areas in Victoria, Greater Shepparton has a higher proportion of residents from multicultural backgrounds compared to the region Victorian average. So I would like to take you through about my role. So my role focuses on 3 key areas. So fostering community connection, building trust and relationships by being present, attending events, and creating spaces for people to share their stories, as Giri mentioned earlier. So celebrating cultural diversity, supporting events and projects that showcase culture, food, dress, and traditions, helping communities feel proud and connected. Also, I'm proud to say that collaborative partnerships, working with local organizations and leaders in our area to create inclusive programs and ensure our efforts align, has been very, very successful. And I'll take you through our projects. So now I'd like to take you through the Multicultural Action Plan and to share how we build it together with our community. So Multicultural Action Plan is something that drives us actions, and with this is for Multicultural Action Plans is for 3 years, is going to be due for next year, and we work with an implementation plan yearly one. So this is how we take actions to make sure that the plan truly reflects the voices of our community. We run consultations with different culture groups and to work with organizations internally and externally. So this process gave us the data you see here, which became the foundation of creating the Multicultural Action Plan. We received responses from 14 culture backgrounds, and you can see a number 329 responses. From our engagement, 5 clear priorities emerged. People told us that they wanted easier access to services, more chances to celebrate culture, better communication, more inclusion, and safe spaces for everyone. So this is the Multicultural Action Plan, was developed based on Council's role in fostering inclusion and community connection. So the key themes of our Multicultural Action Plans, inclusion and celebration, and how we do it. We do it by recognizing and valuing the contribution of our multicultural communities. Access to service, another key point, making sure that our services and spaces that meet community needs. And communication, creating opportunities for connection, healthy lifestyles, and active participation. So these themes guide everything we do to strengthen social cohesion in Shepparton. We are going to go in details in the next slides. So I'd like to focus in this slide by showing you. So building social cohesion starts with connection. So in my role, I engage with multicultural communities in everyday spaces where they live, work, and gather. So this is, I have created their trust. So places when they feel safe, heard, and valued. So always I make time to go to these places, to meet to them and to listen with them. So through these relationships, I have created a distribution list, which is over 200 individuals. And you can see who is involved in here. So from community leaders, faith leaders, trusted messenger, as Giri mentioned earlier, including community leaders, youth, elders, and others who are deeply connected to their communities, who share our messages to their communities, and they go deeply in their communities. So most of them, as I said, are very trusted and share important information within their networks and help others understand what services and supports are available. I'm also part of several community WhatsApp groups where we regularly share updates, resources, and opportunities. So these trusted channels help keep everyone informed, connected, and included. This is how we turn diversity into strength, by building trust, sharing knowledge, and creating a region where everyone feels they belong. So also this slide is very important for me to show you. So we celebrate diversity through a wide range of events and programs. I have a wealth of data to share about participation and impact, but what I truly matters and would like you to highlight is the way these events bring different cultures together. And you can see from the data. So our celebrations are not just about showcasing diversity. They create spaces where people interact, share traditions, and build relationships. So from Culture Diversity Week, Harmony Day, Refugee Week, art exhibitions, food festivals, these programs turn inclusion into action and transform diversity into meaningful connections. You can see here that we do have so many cultures involved in each event, and this is what we think we bring that social cohesion. So they interact with each other and they show their cultures through these events. This one is one of the most powerful examples on how we celebrate diversity and build inclusion is through supporting communities to lead. So we give the opportunity to the communities to lead their event, to empower themselves. And this example is a Refugee Week event, which was led by the Afghani Women Association with support from Council. So a First Nations representative as well was presented, and the acknowledgement of the country set a respectful, inclusive tone. So Council's role wasn't to run the event, but empower the community to lead, giving them the ownership, visibility, and a plan to share their stories. So I'm so proud for this group. One of the members of this group has won the Women Charter, and the other one just got alumni of the Fair Leadership Program for 2025. These achievements show the power of the community-led initiatives and the impact of creating opportunities for women to lead and to grow. Council also supports diversity across multiply areas. We provide grants that help culture groups run events and awareness programs, giving communities ownership and visibility. You can see here the grants that Council supports, and we are in contact with diverse community with refugees in everyday basis. If they feel very free to call us, and we connect them with a proper officer that they're going to advise how the grant is going to be, what the criteria are, and how to apply. And this is not just giving the opportunity to the community to apply for the grants and to receive funds to run their events, but also to learn what is applying for a grant. So we empower them and they feel very confident on doing. But also we have external grants that we share through the distribution list and through different channels that they receive and they applied for. Another supportive is the early years. We assist diverse community families and particularly refugees with enrollments in healthy services. We run multicultural story in languages, as you can see, Arabic, Dari, Mandarin, and Punjabi, and these are always supported by resources in multiply languages, and also videos, which I'm going to speak to you later on how we do that. Also through early years recruitment program, we last year in 2024, we hired 10 educators from diverse background and continue this work to do in 2025 to make services very inclusive. Also encourage multicultural communities to participate in environmental and volunteering projects. And this is our actions that are make diversity part of everyday life in Greater Shepparton. As you can see in here, we have some data that our environment department has been involved with these communities, and they have partners with DECA and the River Connect. So also listening to communities isn't just about engaging, it's about acting on what we hear. So this is our point. So we get the feedback from the community. Also, so this is an example after the 2022 floods. We listened to feedback from multicultural communities who identified a clear gap. And that was, what was that? Was the lack of locally trained interpreters and translators. So in this response, Council partnered with Monash University and co-designed and delivered a program that directly addressed these needs. So for this program was completely free from participants, with funding provided by federal and state governments through Council's Resilience in Recovery program. 20 community members completed the course. This is myself as well in here. Completed the course, and key stakeholders joined a session on how to work ethically with interpreters. So but this training did not just build skills, it brought people together. It recognized the language support already happening in the community and gave people the opportunity to learn connect, and feel valued. This is an initiative that builds trust between communities and services, improves communication, and creates pathways for future opportunities. And it helps people feel included as part of the region. This is exactly what social cohesion is about. Many of these women, they are part of the health educators from Wise World Women, which is a very supportive organization, has assisted council in many times when we wanted to translate in a quick time, in no time, and also to distribute in their communities. So each of them, they do have their WhatsApp groups. They are very deep involved in their communities, and this is how they share information within their communities. Another example that I'm really proud to mention is the community-led resilience building in the event that was called Dance Around the World. This one was hosted by Council in partnership, as I mentioned, with the Wise World Woman and the State Emergency Services. As you can see from the data, over 300 people from refugee and multicultural background came together to celebrate, and at the same time they learned practical emergency preparedness skills. So the event included hands-on guidance on downloading using the Vic emergency app with translators available in the languages. You can see Arabic, Dari, to ensure accessibility. And this one was one of the 4 sessions focused on empowering multicultural families with the knowledge and tools to stay safe during emergencies, from understanding flood risk to preparing evacuation kits and learning how to stay calm. So now access to service was one of the key points as well from Multicultural Action Plan. So at Council, we prioritize meaningful engagement with our multicultural communities, especially those who are first arrivals. One of the key ways we do this is through information sessions that introduce first arrivals to the range of council service available to them. These sessions are welcoming, culturally appropriate, and accessible, ensuring everyone feels safe and supported. We explain what services exist and how to access them and what opportunities are available. So most importantly, these sessions help build trust and foster a relationship between community members and council representatives, laying the foundation of the long-term inclusion and participation. So these information sessions are always ongoing. So we deliver this session based on the request from first arrivals in collaboration with the Settlement Hub at United, and also in partnership with community groups when they invite us to run sessions in their own spaces. So to guarantee clarity and cultural appropriateness, we use native translators and interpreters, making communication effective and inclusive in every information sessions we do. Also, we listen feedback from the community, translated surveys and conversations, and we work collaboratively with community leaders and partners to improve these services. So this approach ensures no one misses out and gives community a sense of ownership in decisions that affect them. So we try to reach as many community as we can, particularly new arrivals. I'll speak to you later on in terms of the settlement hub, how we reach the new arrivals as well, and we try not to miss anyone. So we also promote volunteering and recognize contribution through the Greater Shepparton Volunteer Awards, celebrating refugee members and community groups for their efforts in building a stronger connected community. So myself, even last year, we have been so successful in nomination of the plenty of refugees that they really volunteered in their communities, but I'm working a bit more to make them to understand that each member from different communities, they volunteer between them, but they never know that this can be recognized. And this is what we are promoting, that not just being volunteers in their community, we can become one community in general, volunteering for each other, and also they need to recognize for that, because it's an act that needs to be admired. So this is one of the most powerful ways we strengthen social cohesion also, is through a clear, inclusive communication. How I do that? This connection builds resilience, and that starts with making sure that every person in the community can access information in a way that works for them. Here, how we make this happen. We translate council's materials and service information so that everyone can understand and engage with local services. We use interpreters during events and sessions, as I mentioned earlier. We ensure that language is never a barrier to participation. We write emails, information always in a simple English, making messages easy to read and understand. And we engage with community members and native speakers as trusted messenger, as I mentioned earlier, because communication is most effective when it comes from familiar voices. Also, we provide translated audios and video content, meeting people when they are and in the formats they prefer. We know that there are some communities that they don't read, unfortunately, their language. So for them, it's easy. So what we do, we create videos and we share through the channels, and also through Healthy Educators, through Wise World Woman, they distribute in their WhatsApp groups. And has been very effective way. To deliver this, we work with partners in Council with Language Loop, with Wise World Woman, as I mentioned, the organization, and Healthy Educators, and to use channels that suits communities best: WhatsApp groups, Viber, Facebook, face-to-face engagement. So I'm very happy to show this slide as well, because they are some successful projects we have worked, we are still ongoing, and they are future programs that we are planning on doing. So one of the successful project that we have created is Greater Shepparton Multicultural Services Mapping. So how this happened, I sent out site and expression of interest to all my service providers and stakeholders, and we collect if they wanted to be part of this mapping, they all are happy to do that, and we collect information about their services, what they deliver to multicultural communities, and the purpose for that is to share with the community what services are available, to help find the support they need, and also to identify services that we are missing. Another program is multicultural events and festivals, help us to learn about our community, their celebrations. We collect this information, we promote their events, we support in planning of these events, and also opportunities for inclusion. We encourage community to celebrate in open areas, to bring people together and to promote interculturalism, so everyone can share and enjoy different cultures. Another program that I would like to share with you is Accelerating Diverse Workplace into Agricultural Stakeholder Engagement. This is a program supported by Council as well, in partnership with the Gardner Foundation and Primary Care Connect, one of our strong stakeholders. It aims to engage refugees in the agriculture sector by providing training, development opportunities from multicultural perspectives. This program also helps participants gain practical skills, understand industry requirements, and build pathways to employment, while fostering inclusion and economic participation. So I proudly would say that in Shepparton, stakeholder engagement is strong, and we are proud for the collaborative approach that brings together local organizations, community leaders, and industry partners to make this initiative success. For future programs, intergeneration is one program that we are working with, and we are working with bringing elders and youth people together from diverse communities, and not only. So this connection will help reduce loneliness, preserve cultural heritage, and build respect. So by sharing these stories and skills, communities become stronger, more inclusive, and resilient. About the Intercultural Ambassador Program, I'll speak to you the next slide. So this is what we have started to work in. It's called Shepparton Culture Ambassador Program. It's a council initiative inspired by successful programs that has happened in Bendigo and Ballarat. So this program will bring together representatives from different cultural backgrounds to celebrate Greater Shepparton's diversity. Ambassadors will receive training in storytelling, public speaking, event planning, and intercultural communication. So the Culture Ambassador Program is about helping people connect. We'll create spaces where people can meet, can talk, and can feel safe. So they will help everyone feel they belong by sharing stories and building trust. It will celebrate culture, build partnership, and strengthen social cohesion through events and conversation. And this is how make Greater Shepparton a place where everyone can feel included and respected. So this slide as well, I'd like to focus more. In my role with Greater Shepparton City Council, I work across multiple networks and committees to ensure that our diverse communities are supported and included. Settlement meetings. I attend every 2 months with settlement meetings which bring service providers together to review data on new arrivals. So we do have data every 2 months, what the new arrivals are and what gaps in support that new arrivals are. To this one, develop practical solutions that meet their needs. So these meetings focus on understanding challenges faced by new arrivals, such as housing, employment, health, transport, languages, and create coordinated response that improve settlement outcomes and strengthen community connection. So there are some issues that we are facing as well, but I believe that through, as Giri mentioned earlier, through collaboration with the stakeholders and with local government, I believe we can strengthen these gaps and we can achieve a lot. So as part of the advisory committee to the Victorian Multicultural Commissioners, we deliver key messages and raise issues impacting in our region, ensuring that state level decisions reflect the needs and prioritize of refugees, diverse communities in region Victoria. Another role is as a committee member with the Victorian Local Government Multicultural Issues Networking. We collaborate with councils across the state. We share the best practices and contribute to policy discussions. Together, we work to ensure equitable service delivery and strengthen partnership that promote social cohesion initiatives. I encourage all the Victorians to be part of this meeting, that are part of this meeting. So in this way, we collaborate for the benefits of our refugees, diverse communities in region. So more than welcome, whoever is from that is not involved, is in this meeting, would like to join, just be in contact with me, and it will be great to be part of this. So these roles are not just about meetings, they are about creating systems where every person feels included, supported, and valued. So I believe that by addressing these barriers and building bridges between communities and institutions, we create the conditions for resilience and harmony in region Victoria. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining this conversation about building inclusion and connection in Greater Shepparton. If you'd like to collaborate with us, to share your ideas, learn more about our programs, please reach out to me. My contacts are on the screen. I'd love to work together and to make a positive impact in our communities. Thank you.
Brilliant work, Mariola. Thank you so much for your dedication to strengthening community connections and fostering a sense of belonging. Your work continues to pave the way for inclusive and responsive local community initiatives. It's good that you shared your contact. I can see that there's some comments querying if they could share your contact, so that's good.
Sure.
And to those who've already, no problem. And to those who've already sent through their question, thank you so much for your engagement. I promise we'll get to those during the panel session. Now, to conclude our speaker presentations, we turn to powerful partnership that exemplifies community-led refugee support and lived experience. Our final speakers are Lisa, CEO of Community Refugee Sponsorship Australia. I did struggle earlier. It's a bit of a mouthful. And Blaise. Lisa founded CRSA in 2018 and has led the organisation with a deep commitment to refugee advocacy, policy reform, and community engagement. Lizzie is the CEO of CRSA. She has worked in law, policy, and program for more than 15 years, and she is a fellow of the Centre for Policy Development. Lisa has served as a member of the Settlement Advisory Council, advising the Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs. I'll now also share Blaise's bio. They're both from the same organisation. So Blaise was born in Democratic Republic of Congo and has spent over a decade in a refugee camp before migrating to Australia in 2010. Now a proud Australian like myself, Blaise has worked intensively to support newly arrival migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. With over 10 years of experience in community development, he is passionate about capacity building and mobilizing, having held roles with both local and international NGOs. I welcome them both to speak and share their work. But before they do that, I would like to play a short 2 minutes video that introduces their work. Thank you.
We don't seem to have the sound, Rebecca. We've got the image.
Family, neighbours, co-workers, or friends. Refugee Sponsorship Program. The time has come for you to join in with your friends, family, neighbours, co-workers, or friends that you've not yet met to welcome refugees to Australia.
Actually, Matt said to me, you know, instead of whinging about it, why don't you do something? That's why I thought I'd reach out and find out about the program.
For me, it was the same thing, wondering what you could do that would make any sort of difference. And the fantastic thing about this is that it's so immediate.
Ordinary people had to step up and do something tangible.
If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to help a couple of families settle in. I've been quite amazed at how much is involved in just kind of getting established.
You can hear things over the news, but it's a very different scene when you're meeting people and you're actually relating to what's happening in their lives. We're part of a wider world, and the wider world is pretty beautiful with lovely people in it. And this is a way of connecting.
This is your chance to join a growing global movement that is helping refugees find safety and belonging in Australia. This groundbreaking approach has operated successfully for decades in countries like Canada and others across the world. And now it is our turn to demonstrate the strength of the Australian community to welcome newcomers. This is an opportunity for you to support refugees as they establish their lives in local communities like yours across the country.
There should be no fear about anybody joining, because if you can't do something, somebody else in your group will be able to, for sure.
Often when you want to do some voluntary work, you've got to commit to a particular day a week or something. And this is so flexible and takes advantage of the skills that you've got.
It's been actually relatively easy and actually a joy because everybody is fabulous. So I think we've been really lucky.
When we found the group, we thought, now we have family here.
Yeah, I think personally that we get so much more out of knowing you and learning about you than we give back. It's really satisfying to be involved.
You get a group of essentially disparate group of people together, and they've got all the skills necessary to look after these people. They need something, somebody can find it, you know. It's just been fantastic.
So I think the groups worked really well, really cooperatively, and I think having different ages and different life experience and stages and so on has really...
To be quite honest, I had no idea how I could contribute when I started.
You do your bit, and other people do humongous bits or all sorts of different bits, and it all matters.
I didn't realise that there would be so many people that you would really relate to and enjoy, and funnily enough, everybody had a sense of humour right from the beginning.
It's really good to be part of a team.
The little ways we can help make big differences for them. And for them, knowing that there's a friendly group of people there to support them, I think it's important.
Whenever I have a problem, whenever I'm faced with something that I'm sort of like unable or I'm not able to do that, so I'm calling them, I'm just emailing them.
Teamwork.
Yeah, it is teamwork.
It's teamwork. From my point of view, the human contact that we get and the rapport is really enormously valuable for me.
The important support we received, the emotional support.
The generosity, the courage, the warmth and the appreciation of people when they're just bare bones open there. And I think that's pretty generous of them, and we're doing our very best.
It's just been totally rewarding from start to now.
Don't hesitate.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're thinking of joining, do it. It's great. It's really, really rewarding.
As with all these things, you get more out of it than you put in, that's for sure.
It is really actually such a privilege for us to be able to get involved and help navigate that life from Afghanistan, what that looks like in an Australian context.
My world has become much more colourful, but a little bit busier and a whole lot more bigger.
If you want to support refugees in a way that is practical, meaningful, and life-changing, get involved today. Visit refugeesponsorship.org.au.
Shall I jump in now, Lizzie?
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. Well, thank you, everyone. There's a few tough facts to follow as speakers. Giri and Mariola, fabulous presentations. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I'm coming in from, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present and any Indigenous people in this forum today. I'd like to, acknowledge that as a former white South African, I've been exposed to and the beneficiary of both the extreme state-sponsored and overt racism of apartheid South Africa that I was born into and my family happily was able to leave behind, but also the covert, less acknowledged, but nevertheless real and damaging racism that is present in the Australia that I grew up in and that I continue to live in. So I'm honoured to be part of this really important conversation and have the opportunity to share our work with you along with my colleague Blaise. And just one quick reflection before we get into the slides. I am quite aware, looking back on that video that we made 3 years ago, there's a lot of white faces doing the helping, and not all, but many. Over the last few years, we've seen more and more Australians of all sorts of different backgrounds joining into the program, and that's an aspiration we continue to have. So I hope that people take away from that it's a very inclusive program, that anyone who feels that they've got any time or energy to contribute to feels that they can be a part of, and the profile's looking different as we go on. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind sharing those slides, that would be fantastic. Just while those are loading, I'll just introduce our organisation. So Community Refugee Sponsorship Australia is an independent national charity. We were actually born out of an initial collaboration with the Refugee Council, Amnesty International, Save the Children, Welcoming Australia, and a number of other organisations. So Refugee Council is in our DNA and has been a massive supporter of this work since it was first a twinkle in our eyes. If you could go to the next slide, please. So as an organisation, what we're all about, and sorry, the next one after that, is inviting Australians, everyday Australians, to come to their table with their generosity, their goodwill and their social capital to support refugee newcomers. And as part of that, we are currently delivering the federal government-backed Community Refugee Integration and Settlement Pilot that goes with the acronym CRISP. It's another mouthful. Which happily, after 4 years of piloting, will become a new permanent program next year. So hopefully we'll see it continue to grow and thrive across Australia in the years to come. I'm seeing some claps. Thanks to those of you who've been involved already and who've supported the advocacy for the program to continue. If you could go to the next slide, please. Just for those who are unfamiliar with this concept, you probably got a fair sense of it from that video, but the general idea is a group of everyday citizens coming together to assume responsibility for the reception and integration of refugees and others in need of international protection. It's the idea of committing emotional, financial, and integration support, usually for a designated period of time, to help refugees adjust to their life in a new country. That's a global definition. It doesn't describe in detail every program, but there's more than 20 countries now around the world who practice this in one way or another. And in some ways, it's really just putting a label to something that, if we're lucky, happens organically, but trying to make that happen at a more systemic level rather than relying on luck and happenstance. If you could go to the next slide, please. So yes, community sponsorship comes in lots of different flavours. The CRISP program that I'm going to talk to you about today is a matched sponsorship program, which is basically another way of saying that, a sponsor a stranger. These groups of Australians are saying, we will help any family or individual with whom we're matched. There's also other types of sponsorship, named sponsorship, where those groups can nominate who they wish to sponsor. Sponsorship can happen in other complementary pathways like labour pathways and education pathways. And also sponsorship can happen during emergency intakes when government offer temporary or permanent protection in the context of emerging crisis. Apologies for the typo there. The next slide, please. So just to get to this concept of social cohesion, and Giri, I hear what you're saying about that term and what it can do in terms of covering up the pointier end of this. So yeah, I completely agree with that observation. But what we see is that community sponsorship essentially can reach into places that government and institutions find it hard to reach into. It can reach into people's homes, into their private conversations, into how people spend their time and who they spend their time with. And we think it's a really powerful tool. It's definitely not the silver bullet, but it's a very powerful tool in this quest for building and supporting social cohesion and countering racism. It bridges divides of culture, language, religion, income, and location. It brings people together who might otherwise struggle to meet other than in transactional ways. You know, it's great that Australians of all different walks of life encounter each other in different forums, but I think to truly get the benefit of that contact, we need deep and ongoing contact with people from cultures or religions or income groups that are not like the one that we inhabit, to develop those depths of understanding and counteract prejudice. It fosters two-way belonging and inclusion. The people who do the welcoming are just as much changed by the experience as the people being welcomed. It develops bridging social capital, so that means social capital between different groups rather than just the bonding social capital that happens within particular communities, and supports the full social and economic participation of newcomers. It builds interpersonal trust and reciprocity between groups of people who, again, might otherwise struggle to meet one another. And it builds knowledge and trust in the system through a sort of locally led and decentralized approach that's very flexible and can work in pretty much any community, regardless of what infrastructure exists there. And finally, it develops more positive and informed understandings of refugees as newcomers to Australia. It's hard to sustain prejudice when you meet people face to face and get to know them as people. And there's a huge ripple effect of that contact. It's not just the 5 or so people involved in a particular match. It's also the 50, 100 people around them who go to a fundraiser or hear them share their own experiences of being involved in the program, who are impacted by this work. I'll pause there and hand over to my wonderful colleague Blaise, who's going to talk a bit more about what this thing is in practice and how local governments can get involved.
Thank you, Lisa, and good day, everybody. I would also like to acknowledge that I'm on New Campbell Land in the south of Brisbane. So great to be here and to have you all. What is CRISP and how it works? Just for those of you who are not familiar with the CRISP program and how it works, just to give you a little bit of a background, this is a Department of Home Affairs funded initiative. It is a settlement program. I would tend to see people confusing this with visa sponsorship sort of and other initiatives that exist. This is a purely settlement program, and refugees that are being referred into this program are all unlinked refugees and referred by the UNHCR to the Department of Home Affairs, who then process visas and facilitate travel. So the program starts at the airport. The way it works is that private citizens, everyday Australians, form groups of 5 or more to welcome and supporting refugee resettlement for 12 months from the day of arrival. And what we do in the background, we've been funded to deliver the program across the country, and we empower, mobilize, and supporting these groups in their settlement journey. If we can go next, I'll just explain very briefly the role of community supporter groups. These are the 5 or more individuals that forms group, and we call these group community supporter groups. Basically, their roles start by planning settlement. So we will work with groups as soon as they come on board to really start looking at their community from a settlement lens. We've got a settlement plan that we give them, and so they develop that, and that is what guides them in navigating settlement in their community. There is a bit of a fundraising aspect to the program, and this goes in funding what we call the initial setup cost of the settlement. You may not be aware of this, but usually there is a gap between arrival to when welfare support comes in. And I should add as well that refugees coming as part of the CRISPR program, they all receive all the usual benefits like any other humanitarian entrant. So from welfare support to Medicare, as well as all the other support, including MAP and the rest. The group also assist the newcomer to secure a short-term accommodation from the day of arrival, and then assisting them to securing a long-term accommodation after that first initial phase. The best part is usually the airport meetup. So groups goes to the airport to welcome these newly arrived refugees. I always want to share this as well. Unlike our usual traditional settlement program, what happens in the CRISP is that groups are usually in contact. In most cases, they will be in contact with the newcomers while they're overseas. So the newcomer actually comes to Australia knowing who will be supporting them, who will welcome them. And in most cases, even photos have been exchanged. In some cases, even video calls when the newcomer can speak English. So they will come at the airport with that bit of anxiety that we all know is starting a new life in a new country. It's somehow taken off knowing that they've got people who are willing to welcome and supporting them. And of course, after arrival, there's a couple of things that happens. The first few weeks involves all the essential registrations and local orientation will happen. After that, it's really all based on the needs, aspirations, and challenges of the newcomers. It really informs the support that the groups will provide to them. And as I said earlier, if we can go next, the program runs for 12 months from the day of arrival. I just have some statistics here, which I think will be quite relevant to you all. As of September 2025, we've had over 300 groups engaged across the country. 900 individuals have been matched with groups across the country. And out of those 900, 837 individuals are currently calling Australia home as a result of private individuals, everyday citizens putting their hands up to welcome them and supporting their settlement out of their own goodwill. And with those, we've got groups across all Australian states and territories as we speak, and they've welcomed over 20 people from 20 countries of origins. We've seen over 1,500 individuals really putting their hands up to be part of this. And of course, they also bring their networks alongside that are also providing support in the settlement journey. If we can keep moving, what we'll be interested as well to see that we've got about 40% of the 800 plus individuals that have arrived in the country really being settled in regional communities. And we've also seen communities that have never been refugee sort of traditional settlement areas, welcoming refugees, and even some creating clusters. And of course, there have been some great settlement outcomes that we keep seeing as part of this initiative, and we'll be happy to share some of these with you as well as a follow-up. If we go next, I will briefly talk about how can your council get involved. And I know there's a question about this, but I'm also mindful we're running out of time. So we'll cover this very briefly. Of course, there's different ways your councils can get involved. And we've worked in the last 3 years with councils across the country that are putting their hands up in supporting this work. And this can happen in different ways. One simple and easy one could just be placing some of our flyers and posters in your local communities in key areas that will be visible to your communities. Others could be just assisting us in promoting this initiative through channels that already exist in your community, whether through newsletters and other avenues, supporting local storytelling. You'll be surprised to hear that in your community there could be already individuals providing this initiative. Another one could be supporting local group formation. This is your council really making that commitment to supporting groups being formed in the local communities. If we go next, there are a lot of benefits for you to get involved in this program. Only if you will know that there's very few avenues that provide practical ways for locals to really getting involved in responding to the global refugee challenge. This could be one of the actions you actually provide to your communities to really getting involved practically. We're seeing a very big boost of social cohesion and enhance the social and economic inclusions of refugees when locals come together to welcoming and supporting refugees, refugee newcomers. It eliminates that little bit of a sense of us and them, and that's because the community is actually at the forefront of the initiative. We're seeing a lot of good outcomes that comes out of that. Of course, there's no many things that brings community members together. We're seeing as part of the Graceful program, strangers becoming friends because of this shared purpose. We're seeing communities that would never have ever come together and getting involved, and all of them putting their views and opinions behind and just supporting someone starting a new life in this country. And if all of that is not enough, obviously, this allows your community to welcome new migrants into your local community and developing that sense of diversity in a community. In the next slide, we've got a QR code, and if Rebecca that works with you, we'll be happy to share this by email. Obviously, our community engagement email is there. Feel free to get in touch with us. We really love to work with various councils, all the councils as possible across the country, and we'll be keen for you to reach out or for us to reach out to you, express your interest there, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blaise and Lisa, for your remarkable contributions, the stories you shared, your leadership. This is a powerful reminder of the strength found in the community and compassion. I will now turn. We've just heard from some powerful presentations. Now will be an opportunity to move into a panel conversations. I understand there were some few questions shared already. So continue to send through some questions. We've got about, I think we've got enough time to answer some burning questions. So please, I will prioritize the questions that have come through already. And then if there are no more questions, then I've got questions of my own as well. The first question that came earlier, just give me a second while I scroll through. Yep, so Claire, I'm just going to open this question to all of you, but I'll direct it to you, Giri, if you don't mind. So Claire asked, LGAs do not have explicit equity, diversity, and inclusion policies embedded, let alone anti-racism. I suppose that's more of a comment, and she's followed that with, government websites and information are not even available in all languages, despite AI capacity to translate websites and resources. When will this be addressed? For example, mental health care resources are not available in all languages. The racism is institutionalized. Keen to hear your comments on that.
Yeah, so on the first one was more of a comment, but I agree with the comment. I think it's the same issue of not wanting to talk about racism. And I don't think that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are necessarily things that actually deal with racism, because they might say, get someone in the door, but it doesn't protect them from racism once they come into an organisation or when they're accessing goods and services. So sometimes it has the opposite effect, that people say, oh, look, we're doing really good. We've got a DE&I program. But when you look at leadership and you look at who's got power, it's just people who are white. So there's not actually been a change. On the second point, it frustrates me enormously how we really do make English the absolute lingua franca, which is an expression that means it's the primary language, and we don't recognise that, well, firstly, we're an English-speaking country because we have spent 2 centuries erasing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander languages. And despite that erasure, that they've resisted and maintained it. And secondly, we're so much more diverse than our people realise. You know, we had Muslim traders here well before, Islam was on this continent well before Christianity. And we had 15 Africans on the first fleet, 8 Jews. We had people from what is now Afghanistan, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, from the 1830s, China, bringing languages. But then what you had was the counter movement, this equally rich history of migration, equally rich history of racism, the creation of the White Australia policy. So we've deliberately tried to avoid broadening our sense of language. And it's funny, I've got relatives in India. My cousins live in India on my mum's side, and I'll go back, and my cousin, she can speak English, Hindi, Marathi, Tamil. And then she just looks at me and goes, "So you just speak English?" It was like disappointment all around. I just go, "Oh my goodness, what is the failure of the family?" So instead of seeing it as a strength, right, that people can speak multiple languages, sort of saying, "Oh, you've got an accent. Oh, don't you speak English?" Well, I think, well, maybe we could be a bit broader in our sense of who we are and how we help people. That wasn't really an answer to the question. Sorry, Lizzie, that was a bit more of a rant, but anyway.
Thank you so much for being so open and just speaking from the heart again. You know, I think it's all about different experiences. I can relate, you know, with sort of ease, quickly forgetting my mother tongue and sort of, and I've got cousins that just don't speak a word of Nuer or Arabic. Mindful of time, I'm just going to direct this question, which was posed by Oliver or Olivia. I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm really doing a terrible job with names. They've asked, are City Council working on establishing multicultural refugee networks or advisory committees? I suppose this is more of a broad question.
Would you like me to answer to that?
Yes, please, Mariella.
Yes, no, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, so we are opening up, we are working with a program that is called Shepparton Ambassador Programs. And this is a kind of bringing from each diverse communities, refugees or in diverse communities in general, bringing one representative where they're going to sit all together and they're going to share ideas, to share stories, also to bring every issue that they are facing in their community. And this is where they are going to be employed. They are volunteers, but they're going to be volunteered with council. So council is going to support them with a lot of training, but also is going to hear from them the issues that they're facing in their community. This group is going to work as advisory committee because this is that we get from the main communities and from the heart of the communities, the message is going to come to us. And also we are going to address these issues based on their inquiries. On the other side, we do settlement meetings with different organizations that I mentioned earlier as well. And in a settlement meetings, we are as an advisory committee because we hear from different organizations dealing with diverse communities what the issues are, and by getting all together we always find one way to find a solution. So for example, council doesn't deal with housing, but council supports interacting diverse communities with the other organizations that deal with housing. So when the first arrivals come, we know that we do have some issues, for example transport. And what is transport is they relate to each other is because when we receive the first arrivals, we have issues with housing, which housing is a bit national issue. It's not only for the diverse communities, but with the diverse communities impacts a bit more is because that new arrivals, they have gaps in the language, they have gaps in a driving. So we want them to stay close to CBD so they are not feeling excluded, but they're feeling included and they belong in our community. So when we sit all together, we see these issues, we try to face it, we try to find ways to solve these problems, and we have found a lot of support from different organizations and also from the community. So many new arrivals, they come and they find support from their relatives, from their country people as well, which have been so supportive. And also Uniting, which is the settlement hub, does an excellent job by bringing us all together and also trying to find a solution to help. So as you can see, in one way or another way, we have created an advisory committee, but we're looking forward as well to improve in the future. I hope I have answered the question.
Thank you, Mariella. Felicity has asked, given the lack of available and affordable housing in many areas, CSRA finding this a barrier to community sponsorship?
Shall I take this one, Blaise? Or look, as Blaise will know better than me, in some ways, this comes up all the time as a question and a concern from community members, and certainly not saying that it's easy, but so far, 100% of groups involved in the program have managed to solve that, will help the household that they're supporting solve that issue. We haven't seen anyone homeless or in insecure or inappropriate accommodation. People get really creative. People will, lean heavily on the goodwill of landlords and real estate agents. I often joke, real estate agents are human too, or people too. What we find is that people get excited about the project and they want to help. So housing is usually solved, but it takes effort and creativity.
Thanks, Lisa. This question is for you, Giri, posted by Sally. They say, thank you for all the great work. Your work is appreciated by individuals and communities who have a voice through your work. They've asked, how do you respond to workplace racism, which is covered by policies and procedures?
Firstly, thanks for the appreciation comment. So is or isn't covered? Sorry, Lizzie?
They asked, how do you respond to workplace racism, which is covered by policies and procedures?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it depends on the policy and procedures. I'll go back a step. I think that this is a big question, right? Because the first thing is workplace policies and procedures is usually pretty narrow. They might just deal with interpersonal racism. So if someone says something to someone else or a slur or something, they rarely deal with systemic racism. They don't deal with the failure to recognise overseas qualifications, the fact that if you grew up in, let's say, Singapore and you studied in an English medium, you've still got to sit English proficiency tests, whereas if you come from the UK, USA and New Zealand, you don't have to. They often don't deal with the way in which interviews are conducted. They don't deal with cultural safety in the workplace. They don't deal with, is there a safe place to pray? Can you take leave for considerations, cultural leave, for Diwali, for Eid, for anything other than Christian holidays, which are the only ones actually recognised in law. They don't deal with the notion of who is a leader and why it tends to be the white men end up being in leadership positions. So I actually think that many forms of racism aren't dealt with by policies. And then when you do have policies, they often put the onus on the person who suffered the racism to do all the work. So they've got to make the complaint, they've got to go through the process. And we all know that the person that calls out racism tends to get attacked far more than the perpetrator. And in organisations I was a lawyer for 20 years. I represented plenty of victims of racism. Very rarely does someone stay in the organisation once they've made a complaint because it becomes too hard. So what we actually need is for the Race Discrimination Act to be amended so there's a positive duty to eliminate racism in workplaces, like we have at the moment a positive duty to eliminate sexual harassment in workplaces, but we need a positive duty to eliminate racism. It's something that's called for in the National Anti-Racism Framework. I've called for it. So far, I have no indication from government that they've got any appetite to do it, but I'll still keep calling for it. that's how you bring about meaningful change. It shouldn't always fall on the targets of racism to then have to, having endured that, to then have to, when they're usually overwhelmed, under-resourced, traumatized sometimes, and then they've got to bring about the change. So that doesn't really answer the question, Jury. Rebecca's lamenting, why did I get this guy on? But anyway, that is actually the way in which you deal with the issue, in a more strategic and structural way.
Thanks, Gary. Felicity had asked, with the settlement, so this is directed to you, Mariola, with the settlement meetings, who are the other stakeholders? How do you identify who new arrivals are and reach them?
Sure. Yeah, perfect. So a great question, by the way. So I was about to mention more in my presentation, but as you know, in 15 minutes, we have to include everything. So in these meetings, we usually is the Uniting Settlement Hub, which hosts us, and we bring representatives from Shepparton Language Services centers, where when the first arrivals arrive, we need to provide them with a language providers, and we do have from family services as well, from Centrelink, from Primary Care Connect. I'm from Greater Shepparton City Council. We do have other organizations that deal with housing, with health. So pretty much we try to cover as many topics as we can, knowing that what the services need are for the first arrivals. And also, I think was another question, how we know the first arrivals, who are they? What was the other question?
Yep.
How do you know and who brings the yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
So the first arrivals, the Home Affairs sent straight away to, they work with that Uniting Settlement Hub, and they send all that humanitarian visa, they send to the Uniting organization, and the Uniting organizations provide them 28 days housing, and there is no cost, giving them the opportunity to collect some money that they take them straight away to the Centrelink when they take some benefits, and trying to find that housing after that, which, as I mentioned earlier, has been an issue, but they have found support sometimes from our organizations, but also from the community members. In terms of the work that they have, the employment, also we try to find, and I would like to mention as well that the other day we had a graduation of many women at the Primary Care Connect. What they did, they brought so many women without speaking at all English, and they provided them with cleaning services lessons, so they can be employed even they don't speak English. So in this case, what they're going to do, they're going to interact with English people as well, and these are going to learn the language and provide them as well a bit incomes that they can support themselves after the 28 days. So we receive pretty much not cancelled, but Uniting receives data and new arrivals. I know all the data because I take part in the settlement meetings. We receive number of people, number of families, number of kids, and this is how we spread them where the needs are. So we take the kids to the English learning centers based on their age, and also we do have university that provides based on the Centrelink. They attend 504 hours, I think, of English classes, English lessons, and this is a great job that GoTAFE is doing with these classes. They are providing even after hours, and also trying to have the translators so they can learn very quick English. I'm happy to share more data, and just let me know who is the person and can be in contact with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mariola. Adama Kamara asked, language is important when talking about racism. Can each of the panelists explain what terms they use and why? Mindful that we're short with time, so I do apologize in advance if your question hasn't been answered. So language is important when talking about racism. Can each of you please explain what term you use and why?
Do you want to go first, Lizzie?
Personally? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, I come from a language where I speak 3 languages, a country where I speak 3 languages. And I think language is about connection. Language is not just about saying what you want people to hear, but it's about being understood. And I think when we're talking about racism, it's about belonging, because I think what racism does is it makes you feel you're not part of the community. You feel like the outsider. And I think when I use my language, I ensure that I'm using a language where I'm seeking to connect, seeking a language where although there are differences, there's also things that make us all the same, which is a sense of respect, a sense of connection, kindness, and willingness to sort of work through a challenge that we may both think it's the reason why we're not coming together. And I think, looking at the challenges at the moment, I live in Melbourne, and I think some of the things that are people's thoughts, it's, the cost of living, and a lot of people are turning to migrants and pointing the fingers and saying, migrants are the reason why we can't afford homes and things like that. And I think when we're talking about racism, people often try to look for things, blaming and sort of putting people in a box. And I think a language that is inclusive, a language that shows that you understand where that person is coming from, you understand their fears and concern, I think is a language where people can work together. That was a bit of putting me on the spot there.
So I can jump in as well.
Yes.
I know Adama. Hi, Adama. There's a couple of people I know now. I can see from the questions, Gigi and Adama.
Yeah.
Adama's the Deputy CEO of the Refugee Council, I think. So anyway, the terms that I use, I think that for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, I use Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or First Peoples. Katie Kiss, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner, has told me that she thinks First Nations is not necessarily appropriate because that concept of nationhood has sort of been taken from Canada, and it's not necessarily appropriate. So I defer to her on that. And in terms of non-Indigenous, but she said you can say non-Indigenous people, one of the terms we use in the Commission is negatively racialised, because we say that you become racialised. What I mean is, like, just take me as an example. If I fly to Chennai, India, where I was born, I get off the plane, and in India I'm Giri or Giridharan. I get on the plane and I come home to Brisbane, and I get off the plane in Brisbane, and suddenly I become diverse or ethnic or multicultural or even non-English speaking background. And I'm exactly the same person that got on the plane and came back. I've been made different by the society that I'm in now, often by difference to what is normal, what is white. But the thing with negatively racialized is I don't think anyone understands it in communities. They sort of go, what does that mean? So I'm sort of not using that as much now, and I kind of use people of color a bit more. So Adama, to answer your question, I think it's a bit fluid. I think that for me, where I've got to is, it's not so much about the term, it's about whether people understand and whether what you're saying relates to their experience. And if you haven't achieved that, you haven't achieved it. So negatively racialized is not something people understand, nor do they feel it relates to their experience, and I'm not sure if it's the right term to use. People of color is more of an American term, but it's one that people seem to understand here. Anyway, over to the next panelist.
Thanks, Gary.
Blaise, do you want to jump in?
Look, I was actually been thinking about what do I actually use, the language that I use, and I feel like it's a bit fluid in a sense that it all depends on who I'm talking to and under what context I may use a specific language. Like, I prefer people addressing me as a black man because I think I'm a black man. I don't like the concept African because Africa is all 54 something countries, and we actually need visas to visit one another. So I don't like the concept of being referred to as African. I like being referred as Congolese because I'm Congolese of origin, or Australian in short. So I think, yeah, it's a bit different, and trying to explain racism in the 7+ languages that I speak can also be complex in terms of finding specific language or terms to use for people to understand, because it can mean different things in different contexts. It's very common in my culture, for example, to call each other based on where you come from. and we've got a term for that, but it's not necessarily racism, but it can also mean the same thing depending on why you're calling someone, where they come from, and the language they speak. I'm not sure if I answered that question well there, but yeah. I don't know. Someone else.
That was a good answer, actually, Blaise. Sorry, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I really like that. I think when you think about it yourself, you go, yeah. Well, I mean, Mike, I'll give you. Sorry, don't want to monopolize this, but just just to explain, my wife is white Australian, so my kids are half Indian, half Australian. Oh, I'm actually half Sri Lankan, half Indian. Anyway, my girl is 18, my boy's 15, and I said to my daughter, I said, so how do you think of yourself? Do you live Indian or Australian, or what do you? And she said, oh, I'm biracial, Dad, obvious. Anyway, then I go to my son, who's not at the same time, separate. I said, well, what do you think of yourself? He said, I'm Australian. What a stupid question. I thought, okay, two kids, same parents, same household, have a different view of who they are. It just shows that it's not, for me, it's more about thinking about it, race and terminology, in terms of power and privilege. Ta-Nehisi quotes the great African-American writer, said, race is the child, racism is the father. Race was created, and Lisa can probably relate to this, having been born in the apartheid regime. Race was created as a means of oppressing. So I think you think about it in the sense of who's been made to be different and disadvantaged by the color of their skin, by their religion, by their culture, by the country they've come from. Think about it from the perspective of making equitable what is inequitable.
So I can say my opinion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mariana.
Yeah, so language plays a crucial role in conversations about racism because it shapes how people understand the issue and how safe they feel to engage and how solutions are framed. It's going to be great if it's very important to avoid terms, for example, people from refugee background saying rather than saying refugees, because acknowledge is identified beyond displacement. And also, to me, when we speak about racism, we must be mindful to use language that challenges injustice without invites people into the conversation with empathy and clarity. So we know that I'm migrant myself, and sometimes when people come across with some wording that remind me where I'm from, it hurts. So I think to become a bit more inclusive and to accept each other and to arrive to the point to be interculturalism, that means we accept each other's, and this is what we have to point from now on. We have to make everyone to feel involved and belong. And at the end of the story, what I say to my communities when I go invited in their events is say that how nice and how lucky we are to have such a diverse. No country in the world has the diversity we have. And also watching everyone speaking their language or celebrating their culture or coming all together, how nice that everyone is going to feel, how safe is the environment for everyone. So when we express ourselves, we have to think that how others are going to hear, how impressive is going to be, how others is going to accept, not reminding others where they're coming from, but they are accepted in here. And I'll guarantee you that by being so positive and embracing everyone, we're going to have such a great society.
Thanks, Maria. I'm just going to squeeze in this very last question. So I understand we're past finished, but we've still got about 66 people waiting, still haven't exited. So we'll finish with this question. What do you see the role of local government in actioning an anti-racism framework? So this is posed by Cara Bennett from the City of Melbourne. And this is to everyone. Thank you.
Maybe I can just jump in really quickly and say that I think local government is obviously the layer of government that's closest to the people. And from where I stand and the work that we do, I think local government has an amazing power to connect the individual with the policy, with the broader, whether it's local, state or national objectives. So that's the role that we hope to see local government continue to play and playing more actively in the future. Blaise might want to add to that at a more practical level about the CRIS program, although I think over to you if you want to add anything to that.
Now, it's mindful we're running out of time, but certainly I think it's, I think in the world of funding, in the world of complexities around what we funded to do or what we intend to do, I think it's all about that deliberate effort of trying to do something. We've got evidence at this stage in delivering the CRISPR program that it is actually one of the most easiest mechanism of ending the them and us and bringing the community together for a shared purpose. And really, if local government can get behind it and really moving beyond funding. We've seen councils getting involved in this program without having a specific funding for it, just using existing mechanisms, using existing workforce that they've got and trying to do something about it. And I think that's the challenge I would say is try to do something about it. It doesn't have to be big. It can be as small as having flyers at your library. It can be as small as having a public info session with us. It can be as small as doing something during Refugee Week, March Harmony Week, or Welcoming Week in September. So there is a lot that can be done, but there has to be that deliberate effort of doing it.
Thank you, Blaise. Giri, Mariella, any last minute thoughts on these questions before we wrap up?
Giri, would you like to go or would you like me to go? Thank you. So I agree that council should support education and awareness campaigns, ensure that equitable accessive is to services for everyone, to partner with community leaders as well to challenge discrimination, and most importantly, I believe is good for us as a council employee to collect data, local data that respond to incidents of racism as well, and to work with other state and federal bodies to collaborate and to empower. So we all getting together, and more we raise a voice, more we promote inclusion, more we face and quicker we face. And racism is everywhere. It's not only in the community, it's in the workplace as well sometimes. So I believe that we shouldn't ignore even the small incident, because if we leave a small incident happening, it's going to become huge. So we have to think, it doesn't matter where are you from. It doesn't matter your title you do have. You could be the president or you could be the simple worker. We all have to be faced clearly, understandably, and fairly.
Just look, I don't have much to add. They're the experts. All I want to do is, Mariella, if I can somehow bottle up your optimism and pull it out at future events, I'd love to do that. But that's about it. I don't have anything else to add. Thanks.
Well, thank you all speakers for your insights today, and everyone who joined us and stayed back. Thank you so much. The conversation reminds us that while challenges persist, communities are deeply committed to building a more inclusive and cohesive Australia. Let's keep the momentum going, whether through local initiative, policy advocacy, or simply connecting with our neighbours. In a follow-up email, we'll share some links, and I understand people were asking about Mariella's contact and Lisa's contacts. I'm pretty sure Rebecca will follow that up. And yeah, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.